Hey guys, before we start the vlog, I wanted to mention something. The clip that I'm about to show you I recorded a couple of days ago, and I originally thought I would edit that into my next vlog, but then I was like, hey, I haven't edited this one yet, so I can just put it at the beginning of this one before we go into, how my reading went last month. And so this is what you're going to see in a second. Just for a little bit of context. We have the whole Black Lives Matter situation right now with, it started like I think a week ago. I must say, since I'm not from America, it took a while until it popped up in my little internet bubble. But I thought I'd say something about that as well, because I feel like everyone's saying something about it right now. And I guess I don't want to miss out. So the first video I watched about all of this is actually the video Trevor Noah made on the Daily Show account on YouTube. And I would highly recommend that you go watch this video, because I think it's very, very intelligent, and he is a very well-educated person who can also make sense of a lot of things that are happening. So I would highly recommend you go check that out if you haven't already. And also I've read an article that was written by Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is weird to say, because I wouldn't say that, I have a lot of sympathy for the man, or I know much about him. But that article was really good, and I was actually surprised. I mean, I know that he was the governor, I think, of California for a while, so I guess he is kind of intelligent, but in my head, he's always just that weird bodybuilder actor guy. So yeah, that article was really good as well. And I think the thing with these kind of things is that Trevor talks in his video about how he's mad that people say that, looting is not the right form of protest. And now, obviously, since that video, the protests have evolved a lot. And I think, at least as I perceive the media right now, so there's a lot more peaceful protests now as well. But I think that just gives his video so much more depth, because he talks about how protest is never the right way to protest. And I think that's something you can also see with like the climate change activism that has been happening in Europe, where students would skip school on Fridays to protest for climate regulation, stuff like that, to stop the climate change. And that obviously wasn't a good way to protest as well, because, oh my God, all these children were not in school on Fridays, and people were so outraged, and a lot of German politicians said so stupid stuff, about how this is not the right way to protest. And I think Trevor's video touches on that on another level, and very well. But what I liked about the interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, or the little article he wrote, is that he never said, in the way I perceived it, he never said that it's not okay to loot and to be violent, but he said that you have to keep in mind that if you go that step, it's very, very easy for the media to stop caring about what you're actually trying to protest, and just, just portray it in a way that, how horrible the protest is. But, in all that outrage, people can forget again what the actual, motive behind the protest is. And that you just have to keep that in mind. And I think that was done very well, because it's actually on another level. It's not like judgmental about, oh no, this is not okay, you can't protest like that. But it's the argument of, hey, you can do that, but it might be that people don't take you seriously anymore because you are acting up so much. But obviously, while acting up so much, it also gives you a lot more media coverage, because a lot more people want to see the violence and the drama, and having a very peaceful protest will not even get half the media coverage of violent protests, let's be real. That's just how our world works for some super weird reason I really don't like. So, yeah, what can I say about this that hasn't been said before? Nothing. Nothing at all. Since I am not from the US, I have never understood how the US works, how the people there work. I have to be completely honest with you. There's a lot of things I do not get about this country and about the people who live there. But I think this is a very, very important thing for the world in general. And I think that, especially in Germany, we always pretend like we don't have to deal with these kind of things because in most German cities, we don't really have a lot of people of color that are Black. Like, we have other minorities, and I feel like that often seems like, we don't have to deal with that because we don't have so many Black people. And the couple we have, we don't really discriminate against, like, not in the way that the US does, definitely. But I still think that there's a lot of racism here as well. And yeah, so I think this is something we should all deal with no matter where we are. And I have heard people say that you're not supposed to make this about yourself, and I totally agree. But one thing I wanted to say, and I know that it is a little bit about myself, but it just gave me a tiny bit of clarity. When I was in Tanzania last year, I only was there for a couple of days. It was a very nice vacation and all of that. But it was the first time in my life that I was in situations where I was the only white girl in a room or a street or a, wider area. And that was very weird because I had never felt that way. Like, obviously, there's a lot of weird things in Tanzania about white people. Like, some kids believe that you have magical powers, which is super creepy. And I think some kind of relic of the colonialism. That's a hard word to say for a German. But they don't judge you. Like, it's not in a way that Black people are looked at in the US. But it still felt so weird to know that people are looking at you and they're definitely seeing you. Like, you're very visible. You can't pretend like you're hiding in the crowd or anything like that. Everyone's seeing you. And I mean, my partner is white as well, so I was never the only white person. But being the white girl there was still something different. And as I said, this was never in a bad way, in a threatening way. It was never that I felt unsafe, and so it's not comparable at all. But it was the first time I realized what it feels like to be so visible among other humans. And so I can't imagine what it would be like to feel so visible, but also to feel threatened at the same time. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So I guess what I can say is go and read books and educate yourself. Follow all those amazing Twitter things that are being created right now with places you can help, places you can, donate, places where you can sign petitions, stuff like that. You've probably all done that by now, and I'm very proud of you. And I hope that one day we won't have to talk about these things in such a way anymore. But we will probably have to talk about these things for a very, very long time in general. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you. And then I just had one more thought that I wanted to mention, because I just, I just watched a video about the importance of education and all of this, and that we just need more Black voices and Black history in school. And I totally agree on that. And I think we had a lot of racism in our teaching. A lot of history stuff was about the racism in Germany, but it's always presented as in the past. So, the Nazis were all racists, but that's all over now. And I think that is very wrong. And also another thing I wrote in that post, or that came to my mind watching all of this, is that I basically confessed that I do have racist thoughts. And at first I was afraid to write that because, might come out quite wrong. But I just did some chores around the house and I was thinking about that. And I realized that I really wanted to say that as long as we as white people are not ready to admit to our racist thoughts, we should not join into this conversation. And I think this is a very scary thing to admit that you have these thoughts. But it's also, unfortunately, a very normal thing, because that's something that is ingrained in our whole society. That's something we have been taught since we were born. So we all have them. Nobody can tell me that he doesn't have these very deep down reactions to some situations that are racist. And we have to admit them to overcome them, I think. So, yeah. Just start admitting them, basically. And then we can really talk. And I guess that's one thing I wanted to share as well. So that's all I'm gonna say for now. I will try to link some things that I found interesting down below, but there's just so much out there. So go and look for it and just, use your brains. That's the most important thing. Use your brain. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to start a new reading vlog for May, and in May I'm participating in the Medievalathon, which is a hard word for me to say. But before I can start with my TBR for that, I still have to finish a book, and that would be Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I started reading this on page 100, so I want to finish it this first weekend now. And then another book that's not on my TBR that I wanted to mention quickly because I've already started this is The Two Towers by Tolkien, which I'm reading with my partner. And we were only one chapter into this when the month started, so it will definitely take us a little longer to finish this. And then I'm also listening to my audiobook of The Vanishing Stair right now. And again, this does not count towards my TBR, I think. So yeah. These are the books I'm currently reading, and I will keep you updated. So today is the 5th of May, and I'm still reading Carry On. I made it to page 375, so I don't have a whole lot left. And I think if I find time today, I can actually finish it. And I'm enjoying it so much. This reread is such a fun time. I have read this 5 years ago, I think, so I forgot a lot of the details and a lot of the connections. So I'm really excited for the final showdown because I don't remember everything that happens, and I think it was a good idea to reread this before I go into Wayward Son. So yeah, I'm just very happy. This just made my weekend so much better. So I did it. I escaped my prison because yesterday I finished my first book in May for the Medievalathon. And so now I'm a peasant and not a prisoner anymore, which is great. But I'm a naked peasant without any weapons to defend myself. So I thought the first wise thing to do was to acquire a shield. And for that I have to read a book that I have high expectations for, and I chose Wayward Son for this. So this is the book I want to start today. Now back to the book I finished. It's Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I reread this. I read it right when it came out, so in 2015, and I loved it back then, and I was really excited for the sequel, but it is very short in comparison. This is over 500 pages, and the second book is only around 350 pages, and also, it's been 5 years, so I really wanted to reread Carry On before I go into the sequel, so I don't destroy my enjoyment for it by not being, right in the middle of the story and not remembering a lot of things. So I loved this as a reread as well. I still enjoyed all the things I enjoyed when I first read it. Maybe I would say this is a 4.75 star for me, but I just love how witty it is. I love all the characters. I love the mystery in here. So yeah, this is definitely holding up to me. So I'm now even more excited for the sequel. And I read that for the prompt to read a book that I have high expectations for, so now they're even higher, and so Wayward Son fits that prompt even better. So I just came back in from grocery shopping, which is always an adventure now, and I am ready to just crawl under a blanket and be gone. But yesterday I read the first 100 pages of Wayward Son, and so far I am enjoying it. We definitely see all of our characters again from the first book, which is great. I am very excited to see where the story goes, because right now obviously it reads quite contemporary, because magic is not playing a huge part in this, and I hope that that will change, that we get more magic again. Also, I think there's still like some things that the main character doesn't know, and I'm interested to see whether he will find that out or not, whether it's just dropped basically. So I hope that there will be some kind of connection to the things that have not been quite obvious to all of the characters yet, but we'll see. So far I like it, and I'll try to read more soon. So, I haven't updated this in a while. Today is the 12th of May, and as you can see, I got a haircut, which is great and was very much needed. I didn't read that much, but last night I finally finished Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. I must say that this is nowhere near as good as Carry On. If you have really loved that and you were not sure whether to pick up the sequel, I would say Carry On stands very well on its own, and I don't know where this is going. There will be a third book, I'm pretty sure. This one definitely feels like, you know, just a little something extra for the real fans maybe. But then I also read that most of the real fans didn't like this one, and people who actually did not like Carry On liked the sequel, which is also pretty wild. I decided to give it 4 stars, but it's more on the weaker 4 stars, so 3.75 some people would say. It was fun. I do love Baz. He's like the best thing in the whole world. And he definitely is what drives this book forwards. And we hear more about him again, and about, you know, him being a vampire and stuff, which I guess some people will really enjoy if they like vampires, and I do. But there's some other stuff, like this book feels pretty pointless. This is more of an like road trip adventure story, because they're trying to do a road trip through America, but like everything goes wrong. And so there isn't really an aim. Like you can see from the beginning where this would be going, but you don't feel like you're on a straight path to that. It's quite meandering. There's a lot of crazy stuff in here, and not a lot is explained. So yeah, there's this one dragon lady where I was like, how is this a dragon? I don't know. But yeah, overall it was, you know, just a fun read. It's really just a fun read. And I think I would pick up a third book, but it's not like I'm super excited about it. And I'm actually quite disappointed, because there were so many loose strings in the first book that this one could have picked up on, but it did not. It's just trying to do something completely new and leaves the whole first book behind, basically. So all the secrets that weren't revealed in that book, they don't come up in this one. And I think that just shows that, you know, in between writing those 2 books, I think the characters kind of survived, but the whole storyline did not. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So that means for the Medievalathon that I just leveled up. So now I am a squire, and I'm still naked, but I have a shield now, which is great. And I have this weird picture in my head of this like naked woman with a shield and a horse. So I decided to read Language of Thorns next, because I read this as a tall hardback for the challenge that I need to get a horse. So I think this will be a very quick read. It's under 300 pages and it's short stories, and this is set in the Grisha world, and after, you know, reading the other books that were not the original trilogy, I like the Grisha world so much more, so I hope this will be good. It's a very beautiful book, and I think, as I said, a very quick read. So I hope that I can get this done quite quickly, and then I can ride into the city naked with my shield and my horse. So, yesterday I started reading Language of Thorns, and I have read the first 3 stories so far. That's a little bit more than 100 pages. The first story is a Semini story, so this is more African inspired, I would say. Obviously, this is all a fantasy world, but you can see some parallels to other things. This first story was the best one, I think, so far. It's quite long, it's like 50 pages or something, and I really enjoyed that first story because it turns a lot of fairy tales on its head and combines a lot of things that I like. So you have that kind of 1001 Night Scheherazade feeling in it. You have a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast touch. It really reminded me of the Minotaur in the Greek mythology. And yeah, it also has a little bit of Cinderella vibes. So I really liked how it turned all of that on its head and made something completely new in this kind of more desert-like setting. And I really liked the artwork of that one as well. The second story is the one I liked least so far, but I still really enjoyed it. This one is a story about animals, so that one is set in Ravka, or is set to origin in Ravka, and it follows a fox who is very clever, and that's why he thinks he's invincible, and it follows his journey. And I think that this one is also very entertaining, and I really like the themes of it, and I like the twist at the end, but I felt like that twist you saw coming. And then the third story is also set in Ravka, and it deals with a small town, and it turns the kind of evil stepmother trope on its head, and that one I really loved as well. Yeah, was very interesting, and so far this is a win for me. I really like these stories. So today is the 14th of May. It's not the best day I've had. I've been very successful today, but I'm just not feeling that great. I managed to read the next story in Language of Thorns, which is the last Ravkan story, and this one deals actually with a Grisha, or multiple Grisha, but the main character kind of is a very beautiful girl, and so this story deals with this whole notion that beautiful women need to cover up to be protected from men, and it also deals with the notion of, you know, humans always thinking that if something is there, they can have it, basically, so they can own it. And I did like the story. I feel like the other stories just impacted me a little bit more, but it's a very good story as well. And I just had to read it over, you know, multiple days, which is always a little bit stupid with short stories. I like to read them in one go, but that didn't happen because yesterday I was just so busy. So now I want to go into the bathtub just to try to relax a little bit and give my back a break, because I'm basically sitting on this couch all day working. So I don't want to take this beautiful book with me into the bathtub. I want to take another book. And for that one, I chose this one. This is called Tränenmond, and I think this is set in Morocco, which is a place I'm very interested in, and I think this is a memoir because there's also some pictures in here. So yeah, I'm very interested in this book. I had this for ages. I picked it up used, so I don't know anything about it. And I think this will be a very quick read as well. And I'm gonna read that for my first outfit. So this middle one is the outfit I want to achieve because this is a book with my favorite color on the spine. So I will start this now and I'll keep you updated. Hey guys, today is the 18th of May and I finally finished my third book for the Medievalathon, so I am now a knight. So the third book I finished is A Language of Thorns, which was the book I read to get a horse. So right now I'm a naked knight lady on a horse with a shield. And that obviously is not the best way to be in a medieval setting. So I am already working on a nice outfit. But first let me talk about Language of Thorns. Now, this book is a short story collection, and I already told you about the first 4 stories. Now, yesterday I finished the last 2 stories. The second to last one is a retelling of the tale of the Nutcracker and the King of the Mice. I don't know how you call that exactly in English. It's a German fairy tale, and in December I read the original tale for the first time, so that was quite fun. I felt like this retelling that Leigh Bardugo did dragged a little bit. I think the beginning was a bit too slow and a bit too long, but overall I really enjoyed it. I would, say that it is a little bit long for what it is, but it is well done again. I think what Leigh Bardugo really does in here is show that she can turn these well-known stories on their head and present something completely new by adding, themes from other fairy tales or just, changing themes. And then the last story is probably my favorite. Well, I'm kind of tied between the first and the last story, but the last story was a origin story of Ursula from The Little Mermaid, which, if you know anything about me, I do love mermaid stories. And not the kind of Disney Little Mermaids, but the cruel, evil mermaids that we get in the Andersen fairy tale and we also get in here. Now, I really loved this last story a lot. It is the longest one in this collection, but I felt like, every minute of it made sense. There was nothing you could cut out. And I just loved it. I loved how this, again, turned things on its head and showed that, you don't have to be evil to accept the darkness inside of you and kind of indulge in that. So overall, I decided to give this collection 4.5 stars, and I must say, a little bit of that last half star is also because of the illustrations. I think they are fantastic, but I did love every single story in here, even though I liked some more than others. But I did like every single one, so I would highly recommend this collection if you have not read it so far. And I feel like you can even read this if you have not read a single Grisha book, because there's just 2 or 3 times when there's something mentioned that is specifically Grisha, but apart from that, it's just a fairy tale retelling, and it's so fun and so diverse and so feminist, and I really, really liked it. So yeah, this was a huge win for me, and I'm so glad that I finally read this. Now, I also made it to page 114 in this book called Tränenmond. This is a autobiography of a woman who grew up in Morocco, and so I think I will finish this quite quickly, maybe today or tomorrow, I hope, and then I will finally have something to wear. So far, this book is quite harrowing, especially this first part dealt all with the childhood of this woman who wrote this book, and the kind of cliffhanger you start off with is the moment when her father killed her mother, and then we start at the beginning, and I'm almost right up to that point now, and then the rest of the book will be the aftermath and what happened to this family after this horrible death. So yeah, I'll keep you updated on that one. Hey guys, so it is the 19th of May and I just finished my next book, which is this German copy, Tränenmond. And so now I am a noble in the Medievalathon, and I also finally have something to wear. So I'm not naked anymore after 19 days, which is great. I'm having so much fun with this readathon, can't you tell? So this book is a memoir about a woman who grew up in Morocco, and the catch is that her father killed her mother when she was only 5 years old. And so This book deals with very dark topics. It definitely deals with abuse of children, taking advantage of children. There's some sexual violence as well. This book, it's hard to read, and I think I will give it 3.5 stars. I think it's a very interesting story to tell, and I did enjoy reading it. It's a very quick read. You're definitely flying through this book. But what I felt is that you don't really feel too connected to the author, because this just told in like smaller episodes, and sometimes it just felt really hard for me to create a full picture of it. I can't really explain that too well right now, but what I struggled with is that there are, some time jumps in the narrative and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I just sometimes felt confused. She would be talking about a time when she was like 15 and then jump back to when she was in second grade and stuff like that. And it doesn't happen that often, but as I said, it just was a little bit hard for me to make this into a full narrative and not only have these little vignettes that each chapter is. Still, I think this author had a horrible life, and it's definitely a story to be told, but I just didn't really vibe with the way it was told, and that's what I'm judging here, basically. Yeah, but an interesting book, and if you do understand German, I would highly recommend it. I don't think that this was translated. The author wrote it in German, so yeah. Did enjoy this, and next book down. Okay, now you might have noticed that there's one important thing missing in my attire so far, and that's a weapon. So this is gonna bite me in the ass, I know it. But the next book I want to read is part of the Game of Thrones series. This is the first part of the 5th book, I think. It's the 9th book in the German editions, but those are separated, I believe. This is a chunker, and I decided to read this for something pointy on the cover, because I think the dragon has some very pointy bits. Because I want a sword. I would not know what to do with an axe, to be honest. So yeah, I guess it's gotta be that one. So we'll see. I hope that I can finish the first 100 pages tonight. And yeah, I'll try to read this in the rest of the month. I still have 3 more books on my TBR. We'll see about that.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.
So today is the 21st of May, and today is actually a holiday here, so I don't have to work. I started this Game of Thrones installment, and I haven't really gotten that far into it. I think I'm like 90 pages in, yes. So I still have to do a lot of reading in that book, and I hope that I can concentrate on it today a little bit. But I have to say, already at the beginning, I'm just bored. I don't know why. I don't know why I keep reading these books. I always get them from the library. I don't know. I guess I just don't want to be left out and find out what happens in the end when this series ever ends. So we'll see. Also, yesterday I finished my audiobook, The Vanishing Stair. This was the second book in the Truly Devious series, and I must say I enjoyed the second book a lot more. I decided to give it 3.5 stars. I still think that there's not really anything happening in these books. It's a lot of teenage drama and just a little bit of mystery. I know that a lot of people like that, but for me, I just like to have a real mystery. Even still, I do like the new character that we get, Hunter. I think he's a great addition to the cast of characters, and I really, really like him. I still don't like David. He's so annoying and very toxic, and I think he's written in that way, but I just really hope that, the kind of romantic tension there will not work out in the end, because he's so toxic. Apart from that, I think the ending was quite good in this one, because we actually get a huge reveal now. I said that the first book just basically ended, and I didn't feel like anything was really revealed in that one. In this one, there are bigger reveals, and obviously we have to get towards the end now. Still, I don't think that the way Stevie gets her clues and figures things out make too much sense in the end, but whatever, you know, I just want to know what happened, basically. So I already got the last book, The Hand on the Wall, I think it's called. So I will definitely finish the series to find out what's going on there. But I think overall it will be a 3-star series for me. I don't think that this last book will do, you know, magic and convince me that it's absolutely amazing now. But it's a fun read, and yeah, so I'm just gonna continue that. And then I just found out about a June readathon who sounds super fun, and that is the Make Your Myth Taker readathon, where you can create your own fantasy creature. And I just went through all the different paths. You have 16 different options, and decided which ones I want to try. So I will probably film a TBR for that, maybe today or tomorrow, something like that. Yeah, and I'm just excited to have this day off. I'm gonna get reading now. So today is the 23rd of May, and I think it's time for a quick update. What I forgot to mention in my last update is that I'm now officially a princess, because I have finished 5 books this month, even though not every single one of them did count towards a specific prompt. And I am now 200 pages into this installment of Game of Thrones. I'm slowly getting back into the story and figuring out where all the characters are, because I haven't read from them in such a long time. Because if you didn't know, the 4th Game of Thrones book only focuses on some of the characters, and then the 5th one focuses on other characters. So I have not read from these characters now for a very long time, because I read like a book a year or something like that. So it's hard for me to remember where they were and what they were doing, but, you know, slowly but surely I'm getting an overview now. And what I like about the Game of Thrones series is because you're switching the perspective so much, it's quite easy to fly through a couple of 100 pages, because, you know, if you get bored with one storyline, you're quite easily switching into another one and stuff like that. So I hope that I will like this book better than the last 2, because those were very boring. So let's see. So I'm now on page 326 in this Game of Thrones book, and I can't believe how slow I am with this. I wanted to be so much farther into this book by now. It's not even halfway yet. And I'm quite disappointed, to be honest. So I hope that I can, you know, speed up my pace a little bit and get more into this later today. I also listened to a little bit more of my audiobook, A Hand on the Wall. I don't know. This is the last book in the Truly Devious series, and I must say that I am a little bit hooked now, and I've only just started the 3rd book, so we'll see how that goes. But I hope that there will be a good ending to this, because, you know, I've been struggling through these books a little bit. So yeah, I want this to be a good and worthy end. Now, I also made a little TBR pile for the Myth Taker readathon in June. And for that, I got Ninth House from the library. This is also a book for a new book club next month. And I think it's called the Dark Academia Book Club, or Dark Academics Book Club, something like that. And they're reading Ninth House, so yeah, we'll see about that. These are the 3 books that are still on my TBR for this month. That won't be happening, but I was hoping that I can at least read 1 more book for Medievalathon, so we'll see.
How much do you like this book, my lovey, huh?
I'm on page 447 now in this first part of the 5th book of Game of Thrones. And there have been some things that are developing, hence the German title of the book. I think you would translate it as The Son of the Griffin, so we know now who the hell that is. And I'm intrigued to see how that progresses. I would say he probably does not survive this book or, this book and the next one. So we'll see. So I'm getting more into this now again. I think the whole fourth book of this series was a mess. It was horrible. But I feel like now we got the interesting characters back. There is definitely stuff happening that I can get a little bit excited for again. Still, this is a fantasy book written by a white dude, and you can totally see that. The fat shaming in this book is unbelievable, and it really gets on my nerves a lot. Yeah, so we'll see about that. I will continue with this. I don't know if I can finish this soon or whether it will take me a couple more days, but we'll see. I really keep trying. Also, I listened to more of The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson, and I am excited to see the ending now. And I finally know what the fuck this title means, which is also great, because I always like to know what the title of a book means. So yeah, that's fun as well. I think I have about 6 hours and some minutes left of that, so it will still take me a while. I don't think I will finish it this month, but in the beginning of next month would be great.
Oh my god, it's finally here. And it will go straight onto my June TBR. Oh my god.
Today is the 28th of May, and the last 2 days I had very bad migraine attacks, so I haven't really read anything because I just could not concentrate on the text. I'm now on page 479, I think, so I still have about 300 pages to go. And the month isn't that long anymore, so I am determined to finish this for the Medievalathon, because otherwise I won't have a weapon and I will be pissed. So yeah, this is still my goal. Today I feel much better. I just did a yoga for, my upper back. Yesterday I did yoga for my lower back, and I feel like, it's slowly getting better now. So I hope that I can read a lot of this tonight in the bathtub and then on the weekend, and we'll see. Wish me luck. So yesterday I made it to page 532 in this book, and I just finished the first chapter in this book of Asha, and I must say that I'm just so frustrated with George R. R. Martin, because he wants me to care about this character that I haven't heard about in like more than one book. Like I'm always almost halfway through this one now as well. And I just don't care about these characters. I don't even remember where they are, why they are there. And I feel like he did give some kind of an introduction. So you remember, yeah, right, that's what happened. But still, I feel like being, away from some of these characters for such a long time just makes you forget them, and you just don't care. So yeah, we'll see whether she pops back up or whether she's dead now. I don't know. We'll see. But I will continue reading now. Hey guys, so it is the 31st of May now, and it's already evening, and I just finished this Game of Thrones installment, so I officially finished my 6th book now. So I am now a queen, and I also got my weapon. I decided to go for a sword with this one because the dragons have very, sharp angles on their wings. That's the word. So this book was better than the 2 last books I read. This is the first part of the 5th one in the English editions, so yeah, it picked up a little bit again. I will talk more about it in the wrap-up part. I just wanted to mention that I did finish it today. So yeah, this is officially the end of my Medievalathon reading, and tomorrow in June I will do a new readathon, and I have a new stack of books and I'm really excited. As I said, I will do the whole wrap-up part right at the end now, where I talk about all the books that I read and the books I did not get to. But yeah, this is the end, and stay tuned for the wrap-up. So welcome back to the wrap-up part of this video, where I'm going to go through all the books I have finished this month and tell you my opinion. So the first book I finished in May was Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I reread this in preparation for the second book, which I had pre-ordered but then did never get around to read because I always wanted to reread Carry On first. This definitely held up on reread. I really enjoyed it again. I do love all the characters. I like how the story is kind of turning the tropes of fantasy on its head. I don't think that this is a Harry Potter retelling. I think it's completely its own story and I just love it. So I was very happy to reread this. If you don't know, this follows two main characters basically. There is Cass and there's Simon, and Simon is the chosen one who's supposed to save the magical world, and Bess is his vampire roommate, and they don't really get along. Like, they've been roommates at this boarding school for a while and they just don't like each other. But in their final year in that school, things are gonna go wrong. So yeah, I really love Carry On and I was so happy to be back in this world and really sink my teeth into it. So with this book, I managed to rise up to being a peasant in the Medievalathon. Then the next book I finished was Wayward Son. This is the sequel to Carry On. It came out last year and this is significantly shorter than the first book, which is the reason why I wanted to reread the first book, to be really in the head of the characters again and not, you know, be disappointed because this book is so short and I couldn't really get on with it. Rereading Carry On, I felt like there were a lot of loose threads that could have been picked up in a, you know, continuation of any sorts. But unfortunately, with this book, that wasn't really done. We just delve into a completely new adventure that doesn't have anything to do with the stuff that happened before. Our characters are now out of school, they're in college, and Simon is suffering from the repercussions of the first book, basically. And yeah, we are still following mainly Simon and Bess, and then also to-go main characters, Penelope and Agatha. Agatha is the other girl. Completely forgot right now, I'm sorry. And with this book, we're leaving Great Britain behind and we're moving on to America, and this is basically a road trip book about everything that could go wrong if you're traveling through a magical kind of Wild West America. So yeah, they just don't have as many rules and there's so much more, you know, weird stuff happening in America, and they're basically tumbling from one thing to the other. So in comparison, I did not like this book as much as the first one. I still love the character, especially Baz, but also Penelope is really fun, and I do like Agatha as a character who doesn't really want her magic, but she can't get rid of it. There were also some things that are kind of fun, you know, playing off a little bit on the whole hipster themes that are going around social media. And yeah, I did like that, but I still felt like this is not a real continuation of Carry On. It's just the same characters, completely new adventure, and it's just not as well thought out. It just felt more like, you know, them tumbling around, and I think in the end I gave this 4 stars. Yeah, 4 stars. So yeah, we'll see. I think there will be a third book, and we'll see how I feel about that. But I felt like they could have done so much more with this and didn't. So with this book, I managed to rise up to a squire. And I also read this for a book that I had high expectations for, and that gave me my shield to protect myself for the Medievalathon. Then the next book I finished was Language of Thorns by Leroy Dugo. This was the last Grisha book that I had not read yet, even though I had it for a very long time. I completely fell in love with it. I love the story. I think there are 6 stories in here. Yeah, 6 stories. I especially loved the first one and the last one. I talked about the individual stories a little bit more in the vlog part, so I'm not gonna repeat that here. But I think that the special thing about this collection is how Leroy Dugo turns these kind of fairy tale themes on their heads, and how she was inspired by the way that some fairy tales made her feel when she was a child. Like, for example, with the Hansel and Gretel tale, she always felt weird because in her mind the father was kind of the evil one, and because, you know, obviously he sent the children away just to please the stepmother. Yeah, and she just turns stuff on her head. She's inspired by very different fairy tales as well. And this copy is gorgeous. Like, the hardcover is super pretty, and then you have these illustrations at the edges and they kind of build up throughout the story. And with every story you get a very beautiful picture at the end, and I think this is just overall a gorgeous, gorgeous book. And you don't even have to like the Carisha world just to enjoy this book, because it's basically just fairy tale retellings. And so I decided to give this 4.5 stars, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who likes beautiful fairy tale retellings. So then with this book I rose up to be a noble, and also I read this for the horse, because this is the tallest hardcover that I had on my TBR. Then next I finished this book called Tränenmond. This is a German book by an author who grew up in Morocco, and this is basically an autobiography where she tells the story of her life. And she had a very, very gruesome childhood because her father killed her mother when she was, I think, 5 years old. And she really delves into that. You start off the book with a chapter about the day when the father killed the mother. Then you go into a part that is set before this. Then you follow her story along after this event. And eventually she left Morocco and went to Germany, and kind of with time to reflect on everything and also to go back and visit her father in prison and stuff, she decided to write this book. And I felt like this was very interesting again. I do like reading these kind of autobiographies, and I would have picked up this book so much earlier if I wouldn't have thought the whole time that this is just fiction, because, yeah, I don't know, this just didn't seem like an autobiography. It's marketed as not really as an autobiography, so I didn't know. I bought this used years back, and so I finally decided to pick this up. And yeah, I did enjoy this. I think these kind of stories are important to be told and also to be listened to or read or whatever. But I did have my problems with it a little bit too. Sometimes there were just some weird time jumps that I didn't quite catch. So, you know, she was talking about something when she was 16 years old, and then suddenly she was back to when she was in 2nd grade. And so, yeah, sometimes I just got really confused what happened when. And also sometimes it was hard to feel the connection a little bit. And this was a very quick read. You can get through this book really fast, and I feel like that had something to do with it, because sometimes I was just lacking a little bit of the depth to really, really enjoy it and to really feel it and to really have that connection, kind of. So in the end, I decided to give this 3.5 stars, and I'm glad that I finally read this. And yeah, this is my thoughts for this book. So with this one, I managed to become a princess, which is great. And I also read this for the outfit, because this is my favorite color on the spine, and that was one of the challenges for the outfits. I messed it up. I just realized. So let me try this again. This book made me a knight, and this book made me a noble. Kind of got confused there, sorry. Then the next book I finished was my audiobook, The Vanishing Stair by Maureen Johnson. This is the second book in the Truly Devious series. This is a thriller series, a YA series, something I don't usually read. This follows Stevie, who is a new student at a kind of boarding school that is set somewhere in the mountains, and this was founded in the 30s by a very rich man, and his daughter and his wife were abducted, and there was someone punished for the crime, but Stevie and most of the other people who are interested in this case are pretty certain that this was not the real perpetrator. So Stevie goes to the school to find out what really happened to the founder's wife and daughter. But when she's there, there's some other crimes happening as well, and so she has to figure out what's going on. Now, with this second book, we kind of have the return to the school after what happened in the first one, and Stevie, has made some friends and stuff like that, so you get more of those dynamics with the other characters. There's also some new characters that I actually pretty much enjoyed. There's this new boy Hunter, which I think is a great addition to the cast of characters in this book series, and I'm very excited to see what happens in the end. But apart from that, this is a fun series, but it's not mind-blowing, and I don't think if you're a really like a thriller reader, I don't think that this will, you know, make you go all wild and, you know, want to figure out everything and stuff. So I decided to give this 3.5 stars as well. It's enjoyable, it's a fun thing to listen to. I think I would not like to read it physically. This is just something more light that I like to listen to on audiobook. And I'm currently listening to the last book, but I've not finished that one yet. So now with my audiobook, I became a princess, but this did not fulfill any of the other challenges. So just a princess now. And then the last book I finished was the first part of the 5th Game of Thrones book, because in Germany they are published separately. And this is A Dance of Dragons. So with this book we go back to some characters that we haven't seen in a while, because the 4th book centers around certain characters and then the 5th book centers around other characters. And I think that is a poor choice, a poor writing choice, but that's just what happened. And I did like this book so much more than the 2 previous books, the German editions, so the 4th book in the English editions, whatever. I always get confused. But this got a little bit better again. So in this version we are following Jon Snow again, we're following Daenerys and her dragons, we're following Stannis and what's happening in the north mainly. And yeah, there were still so many things I did not like the fat shaming is very strong in this book. There's also some sexist things that I just don't like. I mean, you definitely see that there's a white old man writing these books. There's this one scene when Daenerys is visited by someone she finds attractive, and so she decides to put on the dress where one of her breasts is not covered. I don't know, there's just some things I just don't like, you know, I just don't really like certain things. And what I realized while reading this book is that, you know, sometimes you have plot twists and they're really good because the author manages to kind of break some rules of the world without really breaking the rules. And I found with Game of Thrones you have some really big plot twists as well, but there are no rules. Like, you can totally see that there's like no big plan that Martin has where this is supposed to go, and he just seems to come up with stuff like on the spot. Like, suddenly there is this character who we've never heard from before in like 4 fucking long books, and he just pops up in here and we're all to believe that, you know, he has been here the whole time. But, you know, George, he just didn't feel like telling us that this character exists up until now to make it a plot twist now, and that's just something I don't like, and I feel like this is just not well written. And I just feel very sad that so many people think that this is a phenomenal fantasy series, because I feel like there's so much better fantasy out there. I still will continue on with this. I know I will. I will always get them from the library. I would never spend my money on these. But I do like to find out a couple of things. And I feel like by now there's so many things you just don't understand about this world that he will never manage to pull off a good ending of this series. I'm convinced of that. And that's probably why he doesn't fucking publish anything. Because, you know, you have the White Walkers, you have the dragons, you have the kind of children of the woods or whatever they're called in English. You have this weird god of the fire. You have all sorts of weird magic that only some people can yield. And you have these, what I don't know what they're called in English, but the people who can see through the trees, and just so much stuff, and I just don't know how he wants to wrap any of that up. So I'm here to see it, but I don't have high hopes. So I decided to give this book 3.5 stars as well. And so with this, I managed to become a queen, and I also read this for my weapon, which I wanted to be a sword, because you have to read a book with something sharp on it, and the dragon's wings look quite sharp to me. So I did not manage to read the 7 books that were the highest goal for this readathon, unfortunately. But that was mainly because the Game of Thrones book is just massive, and also I had a very bad migraine the last week now, because I think without the migraine I probably would have read another one of the books. I have 3 books that I did not get to from my little TBR pile. So I had one for the fox, I had one for the cat, that would be a reread, and I had one for another outfit. So I won't get these for my character, unfortunately, but maybe next year I have another chance for that. So these will go back to my TBR pile, but since I'm participating in the next readathon next month, they will have to wait a little bit longer, unfortunately. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that I also made progress in the 2 towers. So we're currently on page 190. We just passed Helm's Clump. That's probably not what it's called. Helm's Deep is the English one. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm reading this to my partner. We're slowly making our way through this, and we have quite a good pace. So yeah, loving that. So this would be all for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or a nice comment. I always appreciate those. And if you subscribe, I will talk to you soon. Bye!